Talk to me about what it's been like now to live with the player reaction. I think it's a different thing to come up here and we've played it. And I think was it right after review embargo? The game wasn't out yet. It wasn't in the wild.
Yeah.
So now that it's been in the wild, what has surprised you or caught you off guard? What are the reactions from fans that stand out to you?
Oh wow, there have been a bunch of these reactions. I mean, there's one story. We were at the PAX What's Good's games party, and this guy came up to me and was like, "Hey, you made God of War, right?" He's like, "I'm sorry, I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but I just have to say, this one interested me." So sat down and played the game. And when I got to the end of the game, I've been estranged from my father for like 20 years. Haven't talked to him, right? And this game made me understand a little bit about what he might have been going through. It made me want to call him, right? And I was like, wow. I'm like, so you did? Yeah. He's like, I called him. I'm like, do you still talk to him? He's like, we talk every week.
Wow.
Right? And I think, to me, there is literally no higher praise or compliment you could ever get for anything that you can do than it actually helped fix something that was broken.
Sure.
Right. And I don't necessarily...
This is Cory Barlog, and as you've already heard, he was the creative director on God of War's 2018 entry. And it's honestly so nice to hear Cory talk about what this game means to him and his team. The thing is, though, interviews like this are mostly intriguing to me because God of War has been such a long-going franchise. So let's take you back.
Zeus! Your son has returned. I bring the destruction of Olympus!
The very first God of War entry came out on the PlayStation 2 in 2005, with there being at least 7 mainline games released from the series in total. And you'd think that with all those entries, there would have been, this tremendous amount of change with each new installment. But weirdly enough, the biggest changes came from the latest entry. You see, most would consider the old God of War games to be linear hack-and-slash games. Fight the next wave, beat the boss, mash a bunch of buttons, and that's not too inaccurate of an assessment. In most cases, the previous games were all about being constantly smack dab in the middle of combat, because all the fighting and the ripping and the tearing felt good. Because, at their core, this is what video games are best at. They inspire specific emotions and ideas by allowing you to play with their systems. In literature, for example, it's all about structuring written language in a certain way to communicate ideas and concepts. Here, in video game land, communication breathes and thrives through a little something called interactivity. Interacting with a digital space, discovering its rules, understanding and sometimes even overcoming its systems, that's where the emotions and ideas come from. Being able to embody Kratos, the bloodthirsty, frequently shouting protagonist of God of War, with his moveset and his gameplay mechanics, gives you the opportunity to feel empowered, to feel strong. And it's in this core philosophy, empowering the player through gameplay, where there exists the divide between what God of War used to be and what it is now.
Anything that you can do, then it actually helped fix something that was broken.
Sure.
Right.
This is where Cory Barlog comes in. He acted as the animation director on the original God of War, served as creative director on God of War 2, and wrote God of Wars 2 and 3. After that, he stepped away from the franchise to focus on different creative projects. But for the series' latest entry, Cory made a return to serve yet again as the game's creative director. However, things are very much different now. For one thing, the dude is old. I mean, not knocking his age. It's just that Cory has lived a lot of life. His entire team has.
Now, we're out in the floor. This is where all the magic happens. So this area here is the lighting, environment art group.
Whether it be by starting families or simply by living through hardship, everyone at Sony Santa Monica Studio, in all the time since they originally started God of War, has gained experience, has matured, has had time to learn about and understand the things that mean the most to them. Cory Barlog and, frankly, the rest of his team wanted to share that experience, that newfound understanding. They had done Rage, they had done Empowerment. This time, they wanted the player to feel something different. And surprisingly, that something is love and vulnerability. And even more surprisingly, they still help the player feel those things through combat.
Let him go!
To keep it simple, combat works like this. You see that? That's Kratos' axe, but for all intents and purposes, it's your axe. That's the bread and butter of games as mediums. You're the one in control of this character. Your inputs are causing reactions. You're affecting these systems through your natural interactivity. That axe is what gives you your strength. It's how you express yourself in this digital space. It's an extension of who you are. And here's the kicker. So is Atreus, Kratos' son.
Father, look.
Wait for my mark. Relax. Do not think of it as an animal. It is simply a target. Clear your mind. Steady your aim and breathe in. Exhale and release.
I got it.
Good.
While in combat or solving puzzles, all actions that concern Atreus are assigned to the square button. By tapping said button, you'll essentially be telling Atreus to fire one of his magical arrows towards the center of your vision. And that interaction is what makes Atreus an essential part of how you, the player, does combat. Over the course of the game, I got used to this dynamic. It became sorta normal. I'd find an enemy that was pretty weak, I'd center my reticle, tap square a few times to stun them with those magic arrows, and then I'd run up and finish them off. There's this enemy type in the game, the Revenant, that's way too fast for my axe, but Atreus' arrows can slow them down. Oh look, magic rocks need magic arrows. Aim, square, boom. I'm sure you get it, but that's my point. It's a really consistent pattern. God of War's designers made sure every facet of Atreus' interaction served a real purpose, and that all these facets were attached to the square button. And for good reason, because this happened. About halfway through the game, I was finally getting a full grasp on combat. All the lightning arrow combos were beginning to ingrain themselves in, like, my muscle memory. Square, square, square. But then something happens. Atreus falls ill. There exists a cure, but the only way Kratos can find it, the only way I can find it, is if I venture off to a new place without Atreus. And at first I'm thinking, no big deal. I got this. Just gotta go to hell, grab a demon heart, come back. You know, normal God of War stuff. And then I get off the boat. Some monsters get in my way, and just like clockwork, my muscle memory does the thinking for me. I get some distance, I line up my reticle, and I press the square button. And, of course, nothing happens, but then my brain reels in. Atreus isn't here, and because of that, on a combat level, on a systems level, I'm literally weaker. I'm vulnerable. Kratos is vulnerable without his son. Kratos cares about Atreus, and I know that's, like, obvious, right? He's his father, that's what he's supposed to do, but Kratos wasn't like this before. The old games, all of them, were fueled by revenge and rage and anger. In those games, Kratos' tragic past, it served as a justification for doing wrong, an excuse to lash out, an excuse to kill things and to spill blood and to button mash and to empower the player. Emotion, sadness, and pain and regret, in those games, they're all afflictions that must be destroyed and eliminated because they don't stand for our core philosophy. Empowerment. So what happened? Why have a son or a family or anything like that? That's not who Kratos is. In the past, in the old games, I was perfectly fine on my own as a single character. But I've gotten used to this, to companionship, to Atreus, to having a partner, and now that I'm without it, I'm weak. Kratos is weak. Just Why would he let himself become vulnerable, altering what normal life is supposed to be for himself? And then why would he venture off to the chilling depths of hell to save this thing, now weaker without that bond, without that square button to save him? Why be vulnerable? Because to Kratos, it's worth it. His son is worth going against everything he used to be. Accepting vulnerability is nothing when compared to the love he has for his little boy, Atreus. I picked this example in particular because it reminded me of something in my life. Like, I'm in college now and living in the dorms. Since I left, my mom has been calling me constantly, always checking in, always making sure I have enough snacks and that I'm not too stressed out and that I'm not sick and everything. And my dad is the same, but he's just sneaky about it. He calls me himself and asks if he needs to send me money and whatnot, and all that constant care feels sort of expected, you know. Of course, they'll be checking in with me all the time. They're my parents. That's just what they do. But I remember coming back during one of the breaks, and during the last week I was spending at home, my dad asked me, or more told me, that if I wanted to drop out, I can. It's no big deal. We'd figure it out. If college turns out not to be right for you, we'd figure something else out. And at first, I thought he was completely joking. Like, come on now, we worked so hard to get me here, I can't just not be here. And maybe he was only half joking or something, but he followed up by saying, I miss having my boy at home, you know? It felt like, I think it just sucks, you know, not having me at home anymore. And obviously, they want me to go to college and get a degree and live a happy life, but I'm sure it's still sad not being able to walk into your son's room every day and see him there working on homework or just playing video games. But I think that they think it's worth it. It's worth being vulnerable, worth going against what normal life used to be for the boy they raised and deeply adored to live his life, even if they have to go without the little square button for a little bit. I think I'm happy that I got to play God of War when I did, getting to understand the painful perspective of being a parent, being allowed to feel what they feel, even just for a brief moment. And it makes me sad, yeah, but it makes me feel strong too, because, like, there's a normalness to all this stuff, you know. Nathan, we miss you so much, sorry for calling all the time, but your mom has got to be in the know. Like, that stuff, it's special, but knowing the pain behind those words and the love that justifies that pain, that's also worth hearing out and feeling. Because of God of War and that interactive medium it takes advantage of, I got to learn about the love my family has always had for me and the vulnerability they go through to keep it.